Hey, I'm Jason Weber, host of the More Than Enough podcast. This is an interview with Kevan Chandler from a recent episode. For more conversations like this, subscribe to the audio podcast below. I'm here with Kevan Chandler from Fort Wayne, Indiana. Kevan, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
So for those listeners who aren't familiar with you, don't know you, could you share a little bit about your story and what God's done in your life?
Yeah, so I've spent my whole life in a wheelchair. I have a disease called spinal muscular atrophy, and I depend on help from a lot of people to make my everyday life happen. And about coming up on 10 years ago, some friends and I decided that we wanted to go to Europe and explore. And the things that we wanted to do were not going to be wheelchair accessible. And so we left my wheelchair behind, and they carried me in a backpack for 3 weeks. They took turns throughout the day. And that was an unbelievable experience that we had together. And I feel like it was just maybe an encapsulation, like a more highlighted version of what I get to experience every day with guys coming into my home and into my life and being part of it to not just make it possible, but really make it full and abundant. And so from there, we started a nonprofit called We Carry Kevan, which is what we called our first trip. And so now we come alongside families with disabilities and try and help them think outside the box when it comes to accessibility, but also foster community around them, because what we've found is that true accessibility happens with community and creativity.
You know, when I've heard you speak here recently, and I heard your TED Talk as well, you talk about some of your realities of everyday life and the ways in which your wife and your friends help you navigate daily life. Would you mind giving us a little bit of picture of what that looks like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I won't run out the whole laundry list,
For sure.
But laundry list, grocery list, whichever one.
Whichever.
I won't run the whole list, but yeah, I need help getting up in the morning, using the restroom, getting dressed, showers, turning over in bed at night. I can't drive a car, so if we have to go somewhere, someone else is driving. Even on the walk over here today, the sidewalk was a bit slanted, so my wife put her hand on my shoulder to make sure I didn't tip over not the chair, but me, and so really, anything that involves like weight bearing of any sort, I need help with. And so even just getting a book off the shelf and holding it open just right to read it, there's a lot of subtle and small ways that I need help throughout the day. And, that does get tiring, and I could be tempted to see it as a burden for myself and for others. But, what we've really found is that if I handle it right, and if my friends and my wife and my family, my parents and siblings, if we all approach it in the right posture, then it's actually a grace and a blessing for us, because these are small touch points. These are opportunities for us to connect throughout the day, and that fosters deeper relationship between one another, but also with the Lord, as I get to see the hands and feet of Jesus lived out throughout the day with, someone helping me pick up a fork or open the door or whatever it is. It's an expression of his love for me. And I would hope that in my reception of it, my receiving of it, they are also experiencing the love of Christ.
Absolutely. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your friends. Like, where'd you meet them, and what are they like, and what do you guys talk about?
I mean, there's so much variety in them, but I've got friends that I grew up with, that I've known since third or fourth grade, and are still dear friends. And then I have newer friends that, I before I got married, I had a handful of roommates, and that was a really cool experience because not only were we bringing guys into our house to help, but there were guys actually living there that could pitch in. And a lot of them are easygoing in a lot of kind of fun ways, and we love to joke and roughhouse and sing together and dream together. There's a lot of dreaming that happens of what if we go here, or what if we create this thing or start this thing. And so I think there's a lightness that comes with what we do together. And I think some of that is natural, and some of it just comes through the relationship. And I mean, if they're getting me up in the morning or helping me with the restroom, they're experiencing my vulnerability, and so it opens them up to be vulnerable. And so once you kind of get that vulnerability out there, then there's opportunity for more of an easiness to come along with that, I can be myself, I can be comfortable, and kind of let my hair down in this situation. Yeah. So it's fun.
Yeah. So tell us about the practical aspects of making this trip in Europe happen. Like, how did this work?
Oh man. Well, we knew that we wanted to do it, and we also knew that we were all starving musicians and writers and middle school teachers, and so we set out to do a GoFundMe, and that's kind of what got some attention around the world, and people started giving, but also following what we were doing, and so we started meeting together and putting together our itinerary. We knew that we wanted to go to France, England, and Ireland. Those were kind of the main spots that we wanted to hit. So we put all that together, and people gave to the fundraiser, and then we even got invited to stay at a guy's house in England. So that was really cool to stay with some locals and everything, and put our team together, because we had a few guys that I knew I wanted to go, and then we kind of filled in the gaps with a few other guys that proved really, really wonderful and helpful, and we set off. So yeah, and within all that, we were also building the backpack, which I guess is a whole nother part of that. But we found a child carrier and took it apart and retrofitted it to what we needed. So.
And you had 4 guys on the trip who were alternating with the backpack and when carrying you.
Yeah, and then we had 2 guys filming.
Okay.
So, yeah. And those 4 guys that carried me, I mean, for example, I had known 2 of them for trying to do the backwards math, but at that point I knew 2 of them for about 6 years, and one of them for maybe 2 or 3 years, but he was coming and getting me up maybe 2 or 3 times a week. So we had gotten really close and knew each other really well. And then the 4th guy, excuse me, he showed up at one of our fundraiser events for the trip and said, "Hey, I'm certified in wilderness EMT, and I'm a whitewater rafting instructor. Like I do wilderness leadership training, and I'd love to just come and be an extra hand." And we said, "Well, that sounds like a good plan to us."
You're hired.
We have no idea what we're going to get into. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I love the dynamics that we had. Guys I'd known for a long time, and guys that we kind of met along the way.
Yeah. One of the things we talk about in the work that we do, helping churches, organizations, and agencies and communities work together well, is this idea of interdependence. You know, we're immersed in a culture that prioritizes and highlights rugged independence, doing things on our own, charging that hill by ourselves and taking it. And while all of us have gifts and skills and experiences that we should steward well and use to do things that only we can do, there are certain things in our communities that are too big and too important, namely providing what children and families need, that they're too big and too important to do by ourselves. We just simply can't do it by ourselves. It requires interdependence. And a friend of mine once said, what if we began to dream dreams for our communities that required us to be interdependent, to depend on one another? And you speak so beautifully about this idea of community and the importance of community. Community is not, a nice thing to have. It's not an add-on. It's an essential part of all of our lives. Can you speak a little bit to what you've learned, and specifically through the trip, but what you've learned about this idea of interdependence?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to just echo everything you just said, but that's basically it. Is that God has gifted us each uniquely to do certain things, and yet we can't do everything. And typically, that unique thing that we can do, or unique things that we can do, they're designed to lock in with other people's stuff too, and so our gifts should really just be used in tandem with other people's, and there's, I think, as a result, throughout my life, because so much of my life is dependent on other people, and I don't really get to do a lot on my own. But I got to a point a few years ago where I realized, well, the few things that I can do on my own, they're actually still better if I do them with others. I love writing. I love writing books, and I've written a few on my own, and even that, you still end up working with an editor or publisher or whatever. You're never doing it alone. Sure. But even the writing process a few years ago, I just said, you know what? I think I'm done doing this on my own. I think I just want to write with friends and do that as a collaborative effort. And I actually gave it to the Lord in passing one day. I said, I don't know what this looks like, but I want to do this with people. And then I forgot about it. And about a year later, I look up and realize, oh, I'm actually working on a few different books with friends, and I'd been invited in, or I'd had an idea and said, well, it's going to be better if they do it with me. And so, yeah, I just think even when we can do something on our own, it doesn't mean that we should. And, we can see throughout Scripture, like, Paul talks about putting one another first, and he talks about being members of the body, and not being able to, do it without the thumb or the ear, or like he says it a lot better. But I just, I not to repeat myself, but just because you can do something on your own doesn't mean you should, because it can definitely be better and more fruitful, more beautiful, and more fulfilling if you have others involved. And it may not look like you think it should. It may not look like it would have if it was just you, but that's also not necessarily a bad thing. Every morning that we have different guys come and get me up at our house, part of the routine is that they'll get me out of bed, and then they'll make the bed. Well, every guy that comes makes the bed totally differently. And more than once they've been like, wow, I didn't even make my bed this morning, so I'm making yours. But my wife, it's like, you know what? they made the bed, and that's great. And so it looks a little different every day, but
that is part of it, right?
Yeah.
When there's interdependence, sometimes other people are going to do things, maybe not in the way that you would do it, maybe not in the way that somebody else would do it.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And there's a temptation to be like, well, I'm asking you to do this, but can you do it this way? And sometimes that's necessary. It depends on what it is, but in a lot of cases, it's okay. It's really okay.
So, you're clearly a humble guy, and so the question I'm about to ask you is going to make you a little uncomfortable. But I think it's important because what we're talking about here is interdependence, not a dependence. And so I wonder what you would say if I asked you, what do your friends depend on you for?
Yeah, well, again, this kind of spans into all of my relationships, but I think the trip to Europe, the use of the backpack is the most clear example. And that is that, on that trip, their sole purpose was to take care of me and make sure I was good to go. And they weren't just carrying me throughout the day, but they were, at the end of the day, helping me with the restroom, or we'd stop and eat somewhere, or they'd get me ready for bed. It was this constant focus on what I needed. But as a result, I didn't have to worry about what I needed. I didn't have to advocate for myself. And so I could communicate things when needed, but I didn't really need to. And so my focus could be on them. And so I'm on their back, or they're walking next to us, whoever's carrying me. And I could, keep in mind that yesterday Ben didn't sleep very well, so I can check in on him. Hey, how are you feeling today? Or, Tom, strained his back yesterday. Hey, maybe he doesn't carry as much today. I can kind of take that kind of counseling / captain, sort of position of just keeping an eye on all of them. And so, yeah, that translates into every day of guys helping out. And I can keep what I can kind of keep in mind and sometimes juggle what's going on in their lives or the lives of the other guys involved, and ask, oh, wasn't your daughter's birthday this past week? How'd the party go? Or right now I've got two guys. One comes on Monday, the other on Thursday, and they are battling it out to see who finishes the tube of toothpaste. And so I'm kind of the referee on that. But really, it's connecting them, because they wouldn't communicate otherwise. They live in different areas of town. Their paths don't cross. But when it started, I was like, oh, we're running out of toothpaste. Nathan, you should. The next guy up is Ben. You should text him and challenge him. And he was like, ooh, that's fun. So now they've been texting back and forth. And so some of it is to sum that up, some of it is keeping an eye on how they're doing, whether it's physical or emotional, relational, whatever's going on in their lives, kind of being a friend, counselor friend in that case, but also being a connector, being the glue to a lot of that community. And, before I got married, I would, because I live in Fort Wayne, which in January is a frozen tundra, I would go down and stay with my parents in North Carolina for maybe a month or two and kind of get out of the cold. And I would check in on guys and say, oh, you seen so-and-so lately? And turns out like none of them would hang out or be together if I wasn't there. So my need was not only bringing us together, it was bringing them together too. And that's something that I really enjoy and appreciate about my needs, is that it can not just foster friendships for me, but for others as well.
I love that. I love that.
I do too.
Yeah. Yeah. In your TED Talk, you tell a story about one of your friends that went on this trip, who seems like he's always hatching a plan.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you'd be willing to tell that story.
Sure. Yeah. I'll tell a shorter version. But,
Okay.
Is there a red dot I should stand on? No. Yeah. So before the trip to Europe, when we were doing some fundraising and working on the backpack and everything, I spent a few days with one of the guys whose name is Tom, and he is the instigator of our team. And we were on the road driving somewhere, and we were on the highway. And when you're on the highway, there's all these open fields around you. And I had said kind of offhandedly, like, if I could drive, I would never get anywhere, because I would pull off when I saw these fields, and I would run out in the middle of it and just stand there, and it would just be the ground below, the sky above, and me and God in the middle. And that's something I can't do, but that's okay. But it's just a thought that I had. And so 3 or 4 months later, we're in England, and I'm on Tom's back, and we're taking a hike through the countryside. And our host, the guy who offered for us to stay with him, had said, let's go for a walk. And we thought that would just be a short, stroll around the block. Turned out to be a 6-mile hike. And that was a little more than we anticipated, but that's all right. It was amazing. And we came over a hill overlooking the countryside. And the village that we had come from was down below us. And Tom looked around and said, yeah, this will do. And I didn't know what he was talking about. I just thought, yeah, it's a nice area. And he took me off his back. He got the guys to help him, and they set me in the backpack on the ground on top of this hill. And I freaked out. I was like, what are we doing? Why are you leaving me here? And he said, this is what you've always wanted. And he said, we're going to go. And I don't know. I think they probably just wandered off, like, right behind me. They weren't far. And I don't know how long they were gone. It felt like an hour. It might have been 5 minutes. But they left me alone in a field with the ground below, the sky above, and just me and God in the middle. And it was a gift that I didn't anticipate, obviously, and but I'm so thankful for, and it's something that I could not have ever done without them. My wheelchair can take me many places, but the middle of an English countryside is not one of them. And so, yeah, just really thankful for how they made that happen. And they made it happen so joyfully and so with so much ease. And I think that's something too about caring for one another and collaborating, is that at times it will be difficult, and we should be honest about that. But also, I think if we have the Holy Spirit and we're walking in step with the Lord, His yoke is easy. Like there should be a joy and an easygoingness about it that I'm so thankful to experience with these guys on a regular basis.
What's so beautiful about that story to me is that all of us have things we dream about, things that we want to see happen. And particularly the folks listening to this podcast have dreams for children and families in their communities, things they want to see happen. And that story is such a beautiful reminder that in order to see the dreams we have happen, it will require others. It absolutely requires others for us to see the things that we dream about. Kevan, thank you so much for taking the time to talk. Thank you for the inspiration that you are, and the obvious way that you love your friends and live in community. It's an incredible model for all of us. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Jason.